Hello and welcome to another episode of the Strobe Light Series. If you are a parent of a teen, a preteen, or if you're an aunt to a teen, you're going to love today's show. Our guest today is Sahana Munipella. She's a counselor, a mentor, and a coach. She founded Kreopl, which is a platform to help teenagers specifically to transform their lives, unlock the potential that they have to solve life's problems. And at the heart of it, Sahana believes in making the world a happier place. Let's go and say hello to her. Sahana, welcome to the Strobe Light series.
Yeah, thank you, Anupama, for having me here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you here. I know this is a very busy time for you.
Yes.
Exams, and I think parents are tearing their hair out.
Absolutely.
So you're most highly in demand, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean it's nice because there is a lot of involvement of not just the parents but also people like us during this phase. Yeah.
Do teenagers? I know you work a lot with teenagers.
Right.
For them to actually see the effects of counseling, how much time do they need?
So that's a very good question, and it really depends on each child because each child is very different, and what may work for one child may not necessarily work for the other.
Yeah.
So I've been working with a few children for over a year, whereas with some children even 6 months, 3 months, even just a couple of sessions where they just need somebody else other than their parents to give them a different perspective. So it may be essentially what the parents themselves are saying, but when it comes from a professional, they just take to it better. So it could be anywhere between a few sessions to 6 months to maybe a couple of years as well.
The area of focus for Kreopl, your vision that you started with, is teenagers.
Yes.
Right? But let's pedal back a little bit. And you started off in hospital management.
Yes, I did.
So tell us about it.
Oh yeah. So I've done very, very different things in my career. And I did my master's in hospital administration. And that really helped me look at people very up close. And I think that was the starting point in terms of a lot of counseling that I did, but without realizing that I was actually doing it at that point in time. And then my work took me and made me do a lot of other different things. And then my daughter was born, so I took a break from corporate life, till she started full day school. And it's only after she started full day school that I was figuring out what I wanted to do. And I also wanted to do something more meaningful with my life and wanted to, give back to society. And that's when I decided to reinvent my career.
Yeah.
And that's how counseling happened.
Yeah. So Kreopl is the organization that you've started.
Yes.
With a focus on transforming the lives of teenagers.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So what is your approach and why did you choose teenagers? I think it's the most challenging demographic.
I know everybody asks me this question because they're all surprised that somebody would actually want to specifically work with teenagers.
Right.
So we help them. So Kreopl helps teenagers, specifically middle and high schoolers, set a roadmap for success. And what we're looking at really here, Anupama, is a holistic development of the child. So we're not just focusing on the stresses that comes from academics. So we're looking at academic stress, social pressures, peer pressure, whatever goals and aspirations they have. So we're trying to look at an all-round development of the child. So when my daughter started, full day school, that's when the government came up with the Right to Education Act, where children had to be, part of the school and that system. And I actually volunteered a lot of my time with my daughter's school, specifically helping the RTE kids. And that was a huge eye-opener for me because one is they come from socially, the social environment is not, conducive for them. And also they come from lower economic status. And there's so much of disparity, and here they're trying to fit into like a big school. And that was something that really opened up my eyes. And that's when, this whole concept of no child left behind, where I strongly believe that every child must have equal opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's precisely when this whole concept of Kreopl, I think the foundation for all of that started. But I think more after the pandemic, because the pandemic, I'm sure, had an impact on everybody, adults, all age groups. But I think scientific research has shown that the category of people who were most affected were children.
Yeah.
And having a teenage daughter myself, I understood what challenges and what impact the pandemic had on her and all her friends.
Yeah. I mean, since you mentioned the pandemic, I just want to ask you,
Sure.
what were some of the effects that teenagers or children felt from the pandemic? I know that there was a lot of loss in learning because they were
Yes,
at home.
absolutely.
But what did you see? What do you notice?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I think the biggest impact and the biggest hit was on teenagers, especially. Children could be kept occupied, below the age of 10. Parents would play with them, and for them it was like a long holiday. But for teenagers, I think just the fact that they were not able to meet their friends, because that's the age group where they rely a lot on their friends for a lot of support. So it's not that they don't love their parents, but they don't interact so much with their parents at that time. So it's only, all the social interaction that happens is with their friends. And that took a big hit because they only had to meet each other online. And how much, it's not the same as meeting somebody in person, right? So I think apart from the loss of learning, which of course was there, but I think it was the social interaction that they really, really missed out on. And that has affected a lot of children because I found that the number of teenagers coming to me was a lot after the pandemic.
And how open are parents and teenagers to seeking help from somebody like you, from a professional?
So I think parents now are definitely more open. But having said that, I think what really needs to improve is people's perception of how mental health struggles can really be and how can one improve their own mental health.
Yeah.
And if you also look at it, the social fabric in India, in urban India, has gone through a significant change.
Yeah.
So, I think what was so natural for us when we grew up, even if we didn't grow up in a joint family setup, but we had so many aunts, uncles, siblings, you had so many cousins that you grew up with. So even if you didn't have your parents, you could go and talk to your aunt, uncle, or an older cousin. But the current generation, unfortunately, is missing out on a lot of that because you have everybody. First of all, you have smaller families, you have nuclear families, then you have people who are scattered all over the world.
Yeah.
So you don't have, and the single child syndrome as well, which many people are choosing to have only one child. So that is, that has definitely undergone a significant change, and that's the reason I think people are turning more towards counselors and therapists for help.
So what are some of the problems that teenagers are grappling with today?
Okay, so I think in my experience, what I've seen in the last couple of years, Anupama, I think we're seeing children, teenagers especially, battling with body image issues, peer pressure, bullying, and generally navigating their sexuality and just trying to figure out, how they fit in. They want to be the popular kid. They want to be with the popular kid. So as a result, it takes such a toll on them, and that in turn creates a lot of anxiety and mental health issues in teenagers. So I think bullying is there in every single school that you go, and that really needs to be addressed by every school where there are more stringent measures, because what could start off as a small joke of making fun of somebody kind of just goes on a totally different tangent, and that unfortunately is not being addressed by all schools. So that is something that I would really like schools, parents, teachers to take more cognizance of the fact, because I see a lot of kids who come to me, and even in the school that I work with, have all been bullied at some point of time or the other.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
Picking up on bullying,
Right.
how does it appear? Like, it can be sort of microaggression, it can be like huge bullying. So give us an example.
Sure. So some of the examples would be, it could all start off with something very, very simple. It could be just alienating somebody from a group and saying, sorry, but you can't be a part of our group, you can't be friends with us. And that starts from a younger level. So it could start in your own community that you live in your apartment complex, and that gets translated into school as well. And to something, where physical bullying obviously comes much later.
Right.
And that happens, with aggression, and when it goes, with small kids generally hitting each other and stuff like that. But it can also go into a lot of aggression, and leaving children out, calling them names, making fun of their economic status. So there's no empathy in a lot of children, and that is very sad to see. And that in turn, that's how bullying starts at a very, very small level.
I think the making a child invisible, I think it's one of the hardest thing for them to deal with, right? Like sometimes they even want somebody to bully them because at least they're noticed.
Yes,
but it's a very hard path to walk.
It is. It's definitely not easy. Imagine you going, to every day to school, and you don't know who's going to be your friend. I mean, if you're if you're in an older grade, at least you'll have that maturity and you're able to process your emotions better. But imagine when you're in like grade 3 and 4 and somebody says, no, I don't want to be your friend. The impact that it can have on the child is tremendous, because they don't want to go to school. Parents don't know how to deal with it. And, teachers are trying to do their best. So, and children can be very nasty when they want to be. So it's not easy for a child to just wake up every morning and feel happy about going to school, when in reality that they're going through a very, very tough time. So in fact, most children, when they come, the first thing that we ask them is about, one is of course the home environment and the school environment, if they have enough friends. And because having a lack of friends is the biggest challenge that children are facing these days.
So you talked about bullying. What else?
Navigating their sexuality, and I think parents are not very open to, understanding, to having that conversation. And you have specialists who are actually able to counsel and help you navigate that path in case children do have questions as far as all that is concerned, because parents are in denial. They don't want to accept. And it's not easy, right? Because we all come from a very different generation and a very different thought process. So it's not easy for for a parent to accept it. But there are specialists, and I think it's important to just be able to first accept your child and then move ahead from there. I think that's important. And then peer pressure, the whole thing of wanting to fit in, wanting to be a wannabe, and I think that's so common with every child these days. So if you're a popular kid, if you use foul language, you use, you are very confident of yourself, then you are the popular kid. So it doesn't matter whether you have the right values instilled or not. It doesn't matter if you're mean to your friends. It doesn't matter how you fare in academics. But everybody kind of gravitates towards somebody who's popular.
And how easy is it to get teenagers to open up in a session?
So some of them are quiet, but I think in my experience, a lot of them like to talk. And I think if you speak their language, first start off with what interests them. It's usual, when you talk about music, or if they like reading, you talk about books, nothing to do with school first. And you actually start speaking their language, I think they open up very, very fast.
So which of the, do boys come very easily for counseling, or do the girls come very easily?
Okay, so I would say it's a mix. I have, I think, a lot of younger boys and older girls coming to me. That's the mix that I've seen so far.
So coming back to, how sometimes children can be really cruel.
Right.
How do you teach empathy?
That's a very good question. And we're struggling with that a lot in the school that I work with. And so I think some of them show absolutely no empathy, no remorse and stuff like that. But I always believe that it starts from the home environment. So if you know that your parents are empathetic, as simple as the way they treat their house help, the way they treat the other members of the family. So indirectly, or rather subconsciously, the child is absorbing all of this. And it all starts from the home environment. And so that's something that cannot be taught specifically as like a subject.
And I've also heard a lot of parents come and tell me that their child is very kind, but also then becomes a victim or at the receiving end.
Absolutely.
So how do you make that balance between somebody who understands boundaries, for example, that this is bullying, but this I'm going to allow or accommodate because I'm a kind person.
Yeah, I think helping children set boundaries these days is very, very important, at the school level, because, when they're younger, you talk about good touch, bad touch, you tell them that, this is, your body, you can't let anybody touch you. But then as they're growing up, you also need to tell them about boundaries, where is it okay for people to say something? And where is it that you need to stand up for yourself and say, look, I'm sorry, but I do not agree with this and I do not like the way you're talking. Of course, it's not easy, especially if you have, very sensitive children. I mean, they're just going to, they're just not going to be able to handle something like this. So that's a constant work in progress. So we get a lot of people, we have children who are leaving schools because of bullying. But it's not going to be any better because every school is pretty much, you're going to face some challenge or the other. So looking at a different school is not really a solution, but how do you empower and teach your child to be more resilient in the face of whatever happens? And for that, the communication with the parent needs to be absolutely strong, because they should know that when they're being bullied, it's not their fault. They should be aware that it's okay to come and tell my parent.
How serious is this issue of mental health that everybody talks about?
I think when we were growing up, Anupama, we never had, we didn't even talk about mental health, right? I think with, with the kind of environment that we are in and the kind of environment that our children are growing up and are going to grow up in is far more complex than what we ever went through. But having said that, I think it's a combination of a lot of things that you do. So it's just not coming to a counselor or, seeking therapy and, going to somebody and saying, look, I'm on medication. In fact, a lot of children whom I'm working with, find it very nice to say that, what, I'm going for therapy.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I hear it all the time, and I was like, I was really taken aback when I just started off, and everybody is like, I'm going for therapy. So they think it's cool to be, to have a therapist. But I think what I would like to really say is that don't let it reach this level. I mean, yes, I do understand there are very, very serious mental health issues which need medication, which need hospitalization, which definitely you have excellent psychiatrists and psychologists who will be able to help you. But I think at the grassroots level, I think it's important that, parents and children, if your communication is strong, if you have a very healthy, conducive home environment, you would probably not need to, talk so much about mental health and talk so much about going to, a therapist or a psychiatrist.
Where do parents go and learn to be good parents?
Right. So I think, all the essential skills to equip our children in today's, for today's world, I think is not being taught in schools. Like you said, very rightly, emotional regulation, money management, the basics are not taught in school. And like you said, suddenly parents have to be like this, all-rounders at everything, right? And it's very tough. So parenting doesn't come with a rule book, and it's a constant work in progress. Like a marriage is a work in progress, parenting is also a work in progress. And I think it's important, I just want to tell parents that, sometimes learn to let go. So connect more than you would correct. So connect with your child before you correct them and seek to understand them. I think those are very, very important skills as parents that we should have. So at a lot of times, I think children don't need a solution when they come to parents. They have it all sorted out in their head. All they need is somebody who would listen to them patiently and be non-judgmental. I know it's very difficult. It's not easy because the first time somebody comes, my first reaction, if my daughter comes and tells me something, is to react. So out of experience, I just want to tell all parents, please learn not to react. Learn to respond instead to your children. Always look out for the red flags. If you know that your child is not interested in something as they used to be earlier, then it's a cause for concern. If they suddenly stop socializing, if they stop eating, so then that those are red flags, and you need to take professional help. And I think I personally would want to thank PeakAlpha because I think we've been associated with them for like over 19 years, and I think probably one of their first clients. So I think for both me and my husband, I think leading a financially stress-free life and enabling me to pursue my passion, I think has been thanks to PeakAlpha, because I think leading a financially stress-free life, in my opinion, is one of the pillars of a happy family life. And I think the credit for that definitely goes to PeakAlpha. So what I would like to tell all parents here is, please just learn to connect with your child. Learn to understand what is it that makes them happy. Learn to understand what their aspirations are. Because if you look at today's, I'm sure all of us remember our teenage years with some angst.
Correct.
So you just multiply that by 1,000 and you have today's teens. So I'm not saying don't have aspirations for your children. All I'm saying is that at some point, please understand if it is their aspiration also. And if not, learn to have the courage to accept it and then guide them. So I think for parents, it's important for all of us, myself included, is not to be a helicopter parent, but try and be more of a lighthouse parent.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So helicopter parent is constantly hovering around and, you have that thing. And I think learn to be more of lighthouse parents, where you're trying to be their cheerleader, trying to create that foundation for them, and you're not their team manager. But whereas with a helicopter,
more of an
enabler, exactly. Whereas with what happens with a helicopter parent is that you're constantly telling them what to do. You're not listening to what your child wants, and you're making decisions for them, and you're very dismissive of whatever your child has to say. But whereas with a lighthouse parents, it's more about conversations. You're actually having the conversation with your child. You're asking them, okay, what is it that you want to do? I understand, okay, this is what it is. Of course, give them your perspective. And don't keep talking about when you were their age, because according to them, it was ages ago and they're not interested.
Correct.
Give them, don't give them the solution. Give them the guidance and help them navigate, their life. And that is what they need. They need that stability. They need to know that whatever happens, they can be confident enough of going and telling their parent. Even if they've done like the most absurd thing, they should have that confidence that they can go and tell their parent. Because a lot of times our reactions is what scares the children. And that is not a healthy environment for the child to grow up in.
Yeah. So much to learn for parents.
Yes, it is. It's not easy at all. Yeah.
Where does academics fit into all of this?
Understand when your child is probably not cut out for something. By what I mean when I say cut out is that, see, if you put in the effort, every child is capable of doing everything. And I strongly believe in that. But of course, it's also the, the interest that the child has. Try and understand what is it that the child wants to do. And I'm not saying don't put pressure, but put it to the extent that it is required and that your child can handle. Because we are seeing so many cases of missing children, people, children running away from home. Why is that happening? Because of, the academic pressure. They're being put into coaching centers very, very early on in their life, where they should ideally be enjoying their life and having a good blend of, academics and co-curricular activities. You're seeing children dying by suicide and then writing notes saying that, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Because they're made to think that if they don't crack engineering or medicine, then they're failures. So I think as parents, I think we need to tell children to learn to fail. Teach them that failure is okay. There's nothing wrong in failing. Because once you fail, then they understand that they need to put in a lot more effort. And even to teenagers, one specific thing that I would like to tell them is put in your 200%. You're growing up in, with so many opportunities. Put in your 200%. It doesn't matter what the outcome of it is, but at least putting in that effort will teach you that, how to be resilient, how to be, it's going to empower you in so many ways. And always seek help when it's needed. Please do not shy away from, seeking help. The one example that I give all my parents when they come, first for counseling, we're not sure, we don't want anybody else to know. So my answer to that is very simple. So if you have a cold or you have a fever, you go to a doctor. If there's something that's not working in your house, you call, maybe an electrician or a plumber. So mentally, if you're not feeling okay and you feel that you're struggling, you go to a professional like a counselor. And I don't see any stigma or taboo that needs to be associated with it. I think the more open you are, it's better because you at least have the right intervention and you're getting the appropriate help at the right time. That's very, very important.
Yeah. I think one of the complaints that teenagers have is that parents treat them like children but expect them to behave like adults. So, what is the tone of voice when you're engaging with a child, with a teen?
With a teen, okay. Specifically with the teen, I think please, remember that they're trying to create an identity for themselves. They're going through so many changes, and research has shown that the brain and the body changes also brings about emotional changes.
Yeah.
So, they could have their highs, extreme highs, and they could have their extreme lows, but it's about emotional regulation, and it's about parents helping them understand how to bring about a balance in that. So I think talking to them, is very important, the tone. I mean, I'm not saying we can't always watch our tone and, be always nice. Of course, we will tend to shout
slip
and,
slip
it. And that's perfectly natural, right? I mean, none of us are, experts at this. And it could also depend on in what mood they've caught you in and, when they want to ask something. But having said that, I think treat them with, give them a lot of love. Talk to them nicely. Talk to them nicely. Have conversations with them. Don't, treat them like they don't know anything. They don't like being treated like that. Their brain is going through so many changes. There's so many hormonal changes that they're going through. So the last thing that they want is for their parent to, be like condescending and, talk with like they're total imbeciles and they don't know anything.
If you had 3 things to tell a teenage, what would that be?
So I think first thing is I want to tell all teenagers, as cliche it may sound, your parents and your teachers are not your enemies. The second thing I think would be is to please put in, and I spoke about this earlier, is to please put in your effort, your 200% effort into everything that you do in life. Every single thing that you do in life, irrespective of what the outcome is. But the fact that you are putting in that effort will go a long way for you in life. It'll help you be more resilient. It'll help you, understand what it is like to fail and how to bounce back. And I think the third thing is please connect with your parents. I'm telling parents also to connect with your children, but I think even for teenagers, I know your friends are your world, which is fabulous because you have people whom you can talk to. But sometimes please remember that they're also the same age as you. So you need a different perspective, and you need a perspective from, even if not your parents, from a significant adult in your life. Or please take professional help when you think you can't handle it anymore.
Give us some tips on how to be happy.
Yeah, so I think happiness, I know it sounds very philosophical and all of that, but happiness is truly in our hands. And I always tell people that, first fill your cup before you go out to help others. So that's the similar thing. I would request and tell both parents and children to take time off for themselves. I know everybody on social media and everywhere talks about self-care, and I think it could mean very different things to different people. But at the end of the day, it's not selfish.
Yeah, that's similar to what we tell our clients as well.
Right.
Become financially independent before you start helping other people out.
Yes, and I think PeakAlpha is, like I told you earlier, I mean, doing a fabulous job because you don't need to have wealth to come and meet a wealth management expert, but with whatever you have, it's something that they can help you. And we're seeing the benefits, right? Because living a financially stress-free life is very, very important, because if that constant burden of financial stress is like looming large over your head, then whatever you're trying to do to keep yourself happy, it will not work. It will not work.
Yeah.
So like for how you're reaching out, to like a doctor or to a counselor, even reaching out to a wealth management expert or financial expert, I think in today's times is very, very important.
Thank you. Thank you for talking our language. But no, really, I think this has been a huge learning for me. I think I'm going to take away connect, not correct.
Yes.
Respond and not react.
Yes.
And failure is okay.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sahana.
Thank you
very
Anupama.
much.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
I hope this episode gave you valuable insights into how to manage your teen. I know as parents, you put in great efforts to deal with your teenagers and your children, but we can always do a little more. We'll leave you with details of how to get in touch with Sahana. Please follow her on her Instagram handle, Kreopl. We will also leave you with our contact details. If you have any questions for us, please do write in. Our email address is hello@peakalpha.com. See you soon. Goodbye.